on strengthening family and community engagement for well-being. Get it? Okay, what we're going to do today, I think I do better over here. What we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the importance of parent engagement in community partnerships. We're going to identify some barriers and challenges to parent engagement. You notice I'm saying we are, okay? We're going to understand the impact of cultural competence in supporting all community members, and we're going to identify some initial steps and strategies for partnering with parents. I'm asking you to give me a little grace. I got some new braces. I have a whole new respect and love for our children. When you talk about resilience, they have to have that to have me. I've had to learn to eat differently. I lost a few pounds. That's the good thing that came out of it. But I've learned so much through this experience with braces that we don't give our young people enough credit. If we give it to them, they find a way to work it out. But they have to have that support, that guidance and love that sometimes we forget about giving them because we have good intentions. So the lion story, until the story of the hunt is told by the lion, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter, an African proverb. So I'm going to share this with you. If I told you that that hunter didn't win, that hunter got his butt kicked, some of you look at me like, no, Ms. Traceé, that's not what we were told. We were told the hunter won. But I'm telling you, if I told you, that's not the real story. I'm going to tell you my story because I was there. I'm going to tell you that someone helped him and got him out of there and got him home before that lion did any more damage to him. Now some of you are going, okay. Think about that when you're talking to young people. We have to have their story. We can't always have the story that's been told, and if they don't tell their story, no one will ever know. I did a training with some kids, and I kept putting that same slide up over and over as I worked. That slide kept coming up. Finally, this little boy stood up and he said, I'm the lion. I'm the lion. I have to tell my story. Because the story people are telling about us kids, especially in my community, is not true. That's not my story. I'm the lion. And in my community, I'm called Aunt Traceé, Miss Traceé, TT, but you can't call me Traceé, being a young person. You know where I'm coming from, right? So I tell young people, so to give them that comfort right off the bat, I've changed the title for me. And I'm not telling everybody to do that. But we sometimes feel like we have to have these intellectual properties, and we don't give kids a chance to feel us. And we don't give ourselves a chance to be vulnerable. Does that make sense? So imagine this little boy, how empowered he is now when he goes out and he's at the table. He's comfortable sharing his story. And I'm telling you, give young people that chance, and you'll learn so much about them. And right now, for many of us, we're holding the hope for them until they can hold it for themselves. You let them tell their story. They'll be holding it for themselves next week. So this is why parent engagement matters. We have to go from me to we. It's not just me in an island by myself anymore. In my journey, it was all about what I needed to do and the secrets I needed to keep. I can't let everybody know about my daughter and her health conditions. They're going to judge me. They're not going to let their kids play with her. So I'll keep the secret. But I'm going to tell you, because I felt about me, just being me, I cheated her out of needed supports and care. Stigma reared its ugly head, kept me in a closet, bound and gagged with shame, blame, and guilt. Because I only saw me. But that's what stigma does, right? And stigma said if you go out there and tell anybody about her, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to say you're crazy. But when I moved eventually from me to we, I realized it's all about us. It's where we live. We is where we live. It's our communities. We are the community. And my voice counts. Your voice counts. You have to be at that table, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We don't know what we don't know. But I can't be at the table and be by myself. If I'm at the table, I don't want to be a token. You got to put somebody at the table with me. Someone that has a knowledge base, and I can slip them a note, oh, you don't mind, you're going to be the person I use this session. So if I'm sitting here and someone's talking and I don't understand, this is when I first started out, I write a note, and that professional, I write a note back, and because of that, oh, that's what they mean, I can participate. What does that acronym mean? And they write on it and give it back to me. So when we're at the table, we have to have a trusted person that we're working with, a person that we've identified. Don't allow people to give family members what you want them to have. Ask, do you need help with? How can I support you? And no one wants to be a token. So you're looking at family engagement, have more than one person. Have more than one parent. How dare us send a parent to a meeting to be engaged, and they're the only one there, and you've got 15 other people looking at them saying, we got our token, we got our numbers, and then they're not invited to anything else. So how do they build relationships within the work that's being done? So they can be on the board, they can't come to the Christmas party. They can be on the board, we can't come to the fundraiser. Can be on this committee, but when the media comes, no, I'll speak for us. You see where I'm going? If we truly want the family engagement, how far are we willing to go? How far are we willing to support and give? If we're really about engagement, how do we help people like myself back then move from me to we? How do we do that? I'm asking. What have you done to help families when you move from me to we?
I think you're modeling it.
Okay.
You reach out and you ask.
Let's keep loud.
Oh, you're modeling it by you're engaging us by asking us what our opinions are, what we've done. You're encouraging self-reflection and having them think about what they need in terms of support and what they need from you. So you're also putting yourself out there as a support system.
Okay. Okay.
And I am actually a family partner, so I engage parents all the time
Mhm.
to get involved with everything with their kids. To the school, to their doctor appointments, everything. I always encourage them that their voice is the most important of all voices when it comes to their own family and their kids.
And let me say this too about you both. Remember my journey, don't judge me. I love when people have a posture of confidence. She said, let me tell you what I do. I take it. You see where I'm going? She's not sitting here, well, you know, for our group, there's a confidence that comes with family engagement. So you have to be vulnerable, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be vulnerable and be able to look in the mirror and whatever that piece is that you don't have or that you're struggling with, let it go. And if that piece is you tired of doing this work and I don't want to do this anymore, get out. Get out. You're not doing any good to the work that's being done. But when you're able to be like this and say, okay, these are my people, and this is what I want you to know, Miss Tracy, I do with them. I love it. We have to have more of that. And it's not about you having to know everything. Things as simple as respect, kindness. Nobody teaches us to love in our professions, do they? And no judging. Did you all hear that? No judging. A little love goes a long way. And also, as you're doing this work, give yourself a little grace. And recognize there'll be times when you're tired, you're overwhelmed, and you may just need to step back and be still. You can't fix this one, or it's not time, or you're not in a position yourselves because you have a life too. I am very big on self-care. But we've got to move from me, help communities and families move from me to we, and see that it's a collective effort. Can you bake a cake? And I know you all are sitting here saying, what does a cake have to do with parent engagement? How many people in here can bake a cake? Be honest. Okay, y'all can bake a cake. Face.
No, I have ingredients.
Okay, say that again.
Gotta have the ingredients.
Okay, who bakes their cakes from scratch? Cake stand. Cake stand. I can't bake a cake. What cake there?
When you bake it from scratch.
I know.
But it's more time consuming.
Okay, hold that thought, okay? I like it. You hear that? More time consuming. I don't care what I do, I can't bake a cake. I can't bake a cake if you write down the ingredients. I can't bake it if you give me a box. I can't bake it with help. I just never learned to bake a cake. And some of y'all go, I can bake a cake. And so there's an assumption because I'm a woman, a mother, got tips and all of this, you don't think I can bake a cake. I'm leading up to something. But I never learned. I was too busy with my uncles under the hood of the car, learning how to do that kind of work, and I just wasn't interested in baking a cake. Now think about that, when you look at me and made that assumption when you're working with parents. Think about how many parents don't have skill sets that you think they should have. Think about those parents that don't know how to do certain things, and you're going, you know, I'm trying to help them, and they don't know how to do this. That big judgment is put on you. I have a young man that I work with, and he was just beating himself up. He was pacing back and forth, and he's going, you know, he's one that calls me Aunt Traceé. Aunt Traceé, I'm a horrible dad, and I'm not getting this done. Aunt Traceé, you think I'm okay as a dad? You know, I'm doing my best, and as a mate, I don't get it, and I get angry, and I get frustrated, and he started telling me things about his life. And his tears rolled down his face, his tears rolled down my face. And I looked at him, and I said, you know how to bake a cake? He said, huh? Now, went through the whole story like I did with you all. He said, I do not know how to bake a cake. He's looking for help. And I put my hand on his heart, and I said, then why are you putting all this pressure on yourself to have skill sets that you didn't learn? What we can do together, I can help you to learn how to do this, just like I need somebody to help me learn how to bake a cake, y'all. I'm serious. But I helped him to understand that he gets angry. No one ever helped him to understand how to do it. No one ever helped him to understand the importance of taking life one step at a time. And he hugged me, and as we both, but see, I don't mind being vulnerable. As we both have tears rolling down our faces, he said, no one ever asked me or helped me to understand that I didn't have to. And so we sat on the verb. We're not in the office. We're not anywhere that was traditional. We talked. This young man, on top of all the other challenges he had faced, and you all heard about the shooting that we had in Ohio, in Dayton, at the nightclub. He lost 2 family members there. His grandmother had died a few months before that, and he lost his dad recently. Someone hit him on the freeway while he was trying to help someone in their car. So add all the other stuff he had, now add all the stuff he had on top of that, which he didn't tell me until afterwards. I said, you have too much. So if your leg was broken, what would we do right now? So, yes you do, what would we do? He said, you take him to the emergency room. I said, we need to get you some help. We need you to get you some help because right now your brain isn't doing what it needs to do to function fully, and that's okay. So we gotta identify our support and help. You see where I'm going? So it's not just about engagement for him in his son's life. It's not just about him being at his best in other areas. Right now, he needs help. So we have to look at this whole engagement piece from a holistic place. Whatever your job is and the service you provide, that's great, but we're looking at everything holistically. How do we provide supports that give people the opportunity to be a success in the community? Any questions, comments? I know you don't have lunch, but I'm gonna need y'all to participate. Does that really make sense? Okay, so when you're looking back, go back one more time. So when we're looking at can you bake a cake, it's having a different way of even teaching and supporting. We're looking beyond the traditional matrix of this is how we provide programs. this is how we provide services. You have to look at it. Me using cake baking seems to give young people a better way of looking at things. If I go in there and say, you know, you're not a great dad and you don't know what you're doing and you need to have some services, how well are they going to receive that? But if I'm able to show that cake baking piece, even you all, your faces went, oh, because it's real, because we're using something different, but it works because it's relevant to the work we're doing. When we're looking at all of that, even though we're teaching people how to bake cakes and teaching them how to identify supports and services, there's a lot of barriers. And some of the barriers are the systems message and practices, and I'm gonna give you one. If I say to a family, if you can't do any better than this, if you can't be in compliance as a system, we will have to, I'm talking about parenting.
Take your children.
Exactly. Say that again, real loud.
Take your children.
That system message can be detrimental to a family. And it's not ever, to me, appropriate because somebody's not doing what we think they should do, what you think they should do. Tell them, well, I'll just take your kids. You didn't have a bad day, you're tired. We'll just take your kids. So why would I, as a parent, want to participate in anything you have to do? And if I am struggling, why would I want to tell you? Because the first thing you're going to do is take my babies. You want me to be engaged? You want to get your numbers off of me? You want to fulfill a grant? But when something gets hard for me, instead of helping me, you tell me I'm going to take your babies? That system message sticks with families. And then we forget about it. We come back later. Oh, yeah, we're having a health fair. I care nothing about your health fair. You just threatened me. So then you have the parent message that they receive. Their perception is they're going to take my message. Take my children. I have to keep what's going on in my house a secret. Stigma already has me bound and gagged. You told me you're going to take my babies. So guess what? I'll sit over here. And the language that's used for children that live with behavioral health problems is horrible. We say they're bad behavior. You don't tell a child that lives with diabetes, high blood pressure, sickle cell disease that they have bad behaviors. They are symptomatic. We also tell the parent's perception is also one that says, if my kids are bad, they must be bad, so then I'm a horrible parent, and. So if you tell me my child lives with, I didn't say is, lives with bipolar disorder, lives with schizophrenia, lives with a health condition, why would I want them to have that? So I'm going to be in denial for a little while. And then let's go to the youth message. The young person is here saying, everyone says I'm bad, I must be bad. If I'm a child that lives with a faith, then guess what? My creator must be mad at me. So I quit. I give up on the faith piece. My mom is mad at me, the system is mad at me, my creator is mad at me, so guess what? I quit. Now add to it when they're being spoken to. You got bipolar disorder. I have what? You live with. Because when you say someone lives with something, it becomes a piece of them. If I tell someone they are bipolar, then it encompasses everything about them. It's like telling a young person they're having a challenging moment versus a bad day. If I say you're having a challenging moment, then you can flip that around at some point. But if I say you're having a bad day, go for it. So when you're talking about language again, and we talked about this in our other session, it's not only in providing the interpreter, but it's inviting that culturally, and we'll talk about that too, appropriate space for the language to be there. So language does matter. So we move from mental health conditions. Move from mental illness to mental health conditions. We move from bad days to young people being symptomatic. In all that language, we can change in a few moments how people are looking at themselves. So I'm asking you, ta-da, what is it that you're doing? When we're looking at barriers and challenges, what are some of those challenges and what are you doing about it? That's why I said da-da, because you sit over there like I got. I'm kidding, go ahead. What are you doing? What's going on? So you all don't have any barriers, you don't have any challenges. Yes?
I work in a pediatric healthcare setting, mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I switched from doing like individual patient parent education on whatever issues there are to doing group based
Yes.
so that they could and share with each other, and I kind of hooked it as really I'm going to give you a lot of information, but the best part of it is just meeting other people that are kind of going through the same thing that you're going through, and that it always the evaluations is the best piece. But surveyed everybody, when's the best time? It's completely inconsistent. I can't nail like how to get people to come out. It's like 3 people will come and then 45 people will come.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And I think when you're talking about barriers, we're thinking about the barriers to the
the
attendance.
barriers are like
It could be transportation, it could be
Transportation,
childcare. Another barrier could be,
Exhaustion.
yep, I've had a
Yeah.
rough day. Today, I just can't come in there and share all the things
Yeah.
I've been through, because even though you all are my peers and we've had a great time, today a day I don't want to be judged. I just don't want to share it today. And I don't think we give families the opportunity to be families. We don't give them the same grace we would like to have. And then, we'll talk about that later, we don't give them the space. If I don't have to ride across town to the doctor's office, and we can do this at the library around the corner. Kids can read, so we can have our food. We gotta think outside that matrix. And what does that matrix look like if we provide opportunities for people to be successful? What does that look like? And when we're looking at barriers too, we have to think beyond our own stuff. I want you at my program, but what else do you have to want? I don't have food. I gotta go to the pantry. Coming to your group, going to the pantry. Coming to your group, going to the grocery store. Coming to your group, and I've just been a victim of domestic violence. Because we know a lot of the families we work with have so much more going on. And if we're looking at that holistic approach, coming to your group, today I can get time and a half if I go to the office. So what becomes the priority? FAMSA has a wonderful initiative. It's the 8 dimensions of wellness, and it looks at a holistic view of wellness. It looks at social, emotional, physical, spiritual. It's 8 of them. Education. I forget the other ones. But there's a holistic view, and if you're looking at these dimensions of wellness, you're not focusing just on your stuff. And it's also a tool to help families look at these dimensions for themselves. And at the end of the day, do we want families to keep coming back, or do we want to give them the tools they need so that they can sustain themselves? What do you think? Tools they need. So what are some of the other barriers you all face?
So I'm not a direct care person.
Mhm.
I'm on the administrative level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're always saying, okay, we need to engage parents, we need to engage parents. But whenever we have engaged parents and they come to me for whatever reason, I don't have time. I don't have time to give them, to sit with them, to listen to them, to process. And then there's all these regulations that we have to follow and things like that. And so it just gets, it gets messy
We're talking
really
openly.
quick.
We're talking openly.
And that's a barrier I know for us whenever we're trying to really engage parents. It's messy, and we don't always know how to balance it with all the other things we have to do.
And I say this with a genuine heart. I think that if we gave, I'm not saying you don't, if we gave parent engagement the time, the funding, the energies, the space and the place, that we give other programs, it would look differently too. And I think because parent engagement is seen sometimes as an afterthought, like I gotta fit this in somewhere because we're not getting the participation from the kids. I gotta fit this in somewhere because I told the government I would. But what would it look like if it was a natural part of the work we're doing? And we had them at the table, bring a parent in. Find that parent that the other parents trust. Find that parent that wants to learn. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to know everything. Let a parent hang out with you. Let them build a skill base. Let them build some of those things, those tools that they need. Have those conversations. It might take a couple months, but you said you haven't been successful anyway, right? Take that time, sit them down with another staff member, and let them start rolling. Does that make sense? Let them start rolling. Because what happens as well, we give people what we want them to have versus giving people the opportunity to be amazing, because they're amazing already. But they may not fit into this space that we have. And I'm glad that you said that you were honest, because that means you got to stay in your lane and get your stuff done, because that's where funding and everything comes from, right?
Right.
Won't have any money for the organization if you're not there. So stay in your lane.
Oh, yeah, well, and it's like, but it's like pushing others to do the work and hearing excuses, I can't do this, I can't do that, and it's like, yeah.
Go back to, we don't know what we
It's
don't know.
not right.
And maybe it's not an excuse. If I don't know how to engage parents, I don't know how to bake a cake, and you're telling me to do it, I've got a job to do, I'm not gonna tell you I can't do it. I'm gonna make other excuses first. Does that make sense? I'm gonna make up some other excuses, and guess what? I haven't done too well with parents in the past. So I'm tell her I can't do it, versus saying I need help. And again, you gotta be vulnerable. It's okay to say you don't know what you don't know. I think one of the best things that I have done is be able to say, I don't know how. It doesn't take anything away from me as a person. It's okay for me to say that I live with sadness at times to a place. Is it depression? Yes. Because there was a time I felt that for me to say that to you all would affect my credibility in being a presenter or providing a workshop. But it doesn't. But that's what society says. So one of the things we have to do as well, in us being engaged with parents, is to not only be vulnerable, but be honest about what's going on in that engagement. If you can't do something, and thank you for that, say you can't do it. Stay in your lane. Okay? Next. So why culture matters? You tell me. Why would culture matter? We're all the same. We all get treated the same. We all make the same money. We live in the same type of housing. There's no difference between rural. Yes, ma'am.
It's relatability. I mean, if I walk in and dress like this to my clients, they're gonna be like, who is this holy sweetie coming in here trying to tell me how to raise my kids? It doesn't work.
Why?
Because they already have that wall. It's like, she doesn't know my life. It's a presumption that I can't relate to what they're going through. So why would they want to tell me something and I don't look like them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have their life. I don't have their background. And that's what they think.
Mm-hmm.
We can both make assumptions on that way if we don't know. And I won't know how to talk to them if I'm not relatable to them either. I won't know what language to use or what language not to use.
How many people struggle with culture and working with families and different things? I do. I struggle with culture. And I'm a person that feels like I have it together most of the time. And so in some of the work I do, I go into various faith communities. And I always look for someone or identify someone that is of that faith because I want to be approachable. I want to make sure that when I walk in that room, I'm heard, not because I have so much to say, but I want to be effective. So I went into a faith community with a colleague, and before I went, she helped me with my dress. I had to take some of this off. And I said, is there anything else? And she said, yes. Traceé, don't you go in there hugging folks. I'm a hugger. I am a hugger. And she said, you can't go in there and hugging. So when I went in there, I'm still going in there with this same spirit, right? So I got my hands behind my back, and I'm doing like this and say, hi, how are you? And my hands are like, bring it in, bring it in. But I had to put my hands behind my back. And then it reminded me of how I've been treated. When people wanted me to have something, and I've been offended. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I get it now. This is hard for me, but in wanting to be engaged in communities, how am I going to be most effective? I gotta follow the rules. So whatever the rules are, we have to follow them. And the other piece that offends me is people think it's just race and ethnic background. And it's not. Look at the culture of grandparents raising their grandchildren. Look at the culture of foster parents. Look at the culture of someone of a different race fostering a child of color. The supports that they may need. And it's okay to ask for help. So tell me a little bit more about culture here in Houston.
We can be the same race or look the same, but we've been brought up different ways or different part of the country, different side of town.
See, and nobody ever talks about that. Have you ever went somewhere and they ask you your opinion because of who you look like? Because I'm an African-American woman, they want me to represent every African-American woman in the city. I'm going, for real? I really don't get it. But in doing so, I'm going, y'all really don't want to have me represent everybody. This won't be a good program. You have to, and it has to not be one or two. Again, we have to be able to say, we can't have a token representative at the table. And at some point, and I'm not saying today or tomorrow, we have to take that stand. And that comes with confidence, willing to be vulnerable. Because if you go to a table and you're by yourself, at some point I would love for you to say, you know what, I appreciate being invited to this table, but I think we're missing more women, or we're missing more youth of color. We're missing more people that look like me. And you can't have just me because I can't represent everybody. We have to be able to say that. When we're looking at culture, what are some of your challenges? What are some of your challenges? We're going to be vulnerable. What are some of the challenges that you face? Yes, ma'am.
I think sometimes neighborhoods are different. Even like we're saying, even though they may look a certain way, neighborhoods are very different. I cover Galveston County and Brazoria County, and so we may have Santa Fe one way, Alvin. They're different cultures we all get, even though they look the same.
Yeah.
But they're also so big. And so it's like, for me to actually get a representative from this side of town on Santa Fe, we need another one on this side of town as well. So it's just, you need a bunch of people. So for me, it's just the vast majority of areas I cover.
Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
As a white girl in the room, I have challenges sometimes. As I've led organizations, I'm familiar more about implicit bias, right? Because I've worked with people from other cultures, other backgrounds. I want to ask questions. I want to learn more. So, in the medical arena, we're finding huge challenges with implicit bias. But sometimes as I'm asking questions, even from people of a different background, they will say, oh yeah, well, they're Hispanic. People say, well, Hispanic women like that. And then I'm like, okay. Like, I just believe it. So, I think it's being able to realize, right, like, if you're the person in the room and you're the only person of color, I want to be able to have you help me understand, and it's not that I want you to represent me, but help me understand, and then help me bring other people, because I don't always know how
And I say this with a humble heart. I think one of the things that happens is there's a wait until there's an event, or there's a wait until we meet that voice. And if it could be a situation where there are collaborative meetings, there's things that we do together. I do it just because we're women. You gotta be at least 18 for the discussions we have. And I say, come as old as anybody wants to come. And we come together and we have dinner. I provide dinner, we have dinner, and we just have genuine conversations. It has nothing to do with, because I'm African American, you're Hispanic, it is nothing like that, just come together. And what I found is, where I'm trying to make things perfect, because remember, I'm human. People just want to come together. We kick our shoes off, and guess where we end up? In my kitchen. We're sitting on the floor, we're sitting at the table, we're doing things. There's nothing in it for me to do that, but I tell you what, when I need volunteers, or I need somebody at a table, I can go back to them because I know where they come from, and I'm a trusted messenger, and they trust me. It's not just waiting until we have an event to say, oh, I wish I could have their voice. We don't build enough relationships. And we build the relationships in the settings that are professional. That doesn't even make sense to me. Build relationships when there's nothing in it for you. Build those relationships because you care. And again, if you don't care, get out. Because there's a lot of people that want to do this work and they're doing great work. Does that make sense? So to that, I'm sharing with you, start building some relationships. Identify some folks, be vulnerable, say, you know what, I'm in this field and I want to do some additional work, but I don't have the tools I need to do it, and can you help me? Do you have some other groups that I can attend? Is there someplace else I can do some work to support you all? Gotta provide some in-kind folks too. Go ahead.
I think sometimes we get so stuck on how we're different that we forget how we're all relatable to each other. So then we start putting each other like in different boxes instead of coming together as a whole. I think that might be one of the biggest problems with culture is that we just focus on all the differences or what makes us different rather than the true goal of bringing us together, what makes us equal or what makes us the same, what makes us relatable.
And I agree, and I think too, we have to be more mindful that even with good intent and being culturally sensitive, culturally appropriate, there's still going to be areas that we don't know about in culture. Whatever they've kept inside, whatever I have here, that heaviness that my mother passed down to me, that her mother gave her, I would not share that. And to show you what I mean, I went to one of my best girlfriends. She lives out in the country, and I live in the city. We've been friends for 30 years. And so she brought a smaller farm. And we say we're as different as night and day, but familiar as two peas in a pod. So remember, there's still stuff about me I'm not sharing. So we're riding down this road, and I'm not judging where anybody lives, but from where I come from, my perception of this situation, don't judge me. So we're riding down this road, and it's a little tiny road, and there's trailer homes on each side, and then they're looking a little different, like something I've heard about and seen before in the movie The Deliverance. I know y'all have seen it, okay? So I'm riding down here, and I'm going, I'm not feeling comfortable, but I'm gonna ride, because I'm looking for it. And this, we didn't know it would be a dead end, and there's a Confederate flag, and somebody like this, out there, and I said, ah! And I hit the brakes, and my car slid, and she, what is wrong with you? I said, you don't see that flag? She said, Tracy, you're crazy. I said, this is serious. She said, you're, and we're going back and forth. I said, hold on. I said, first of all, this isn't funny. She said, but you're okay. I said, I'm not okay. And I'm in this space and I can't get out of it. Now, some of you who understand that experience, you're going, and other of you are going, and that's okay. because it's my journey. But for me, that's a part of my life that I never shared with her. You see where I'm going? So if we want to have these discussions, it's going to be a process, and you're not going to have families sharing everything with you all at once. But whatever it is they share with you, I ask you, do not judge them. Don't make light of it. Because all of you have something in your lives that is a trigger for something that may not be so nice. Okay? Anything else? Okay. How much time do we have?
30 minutes.
We got 30 minutes. Okay. So when we're looking at spaces and places, I'm thinking about these are places and spaces in our community. How well do we utilize them? We automatically assume that we need to take all our services and programs and meetings to outpatient services, right? Or we have to meet at the hospital, we have to meet at the organization, we have to meet at those organized places that have been identified for us. As family members, as community, we're supposed to meet there. But what would it look like if we better used what's already in the community? Thinking outside that matrix, why aren't we doing more in the churches, in the faith community? Why aren't we going there more? Why aren't we having health fairs and services at the library? Like I mentioned earlier. Why aren't we having things at the community and rec center? Those are amazing spaces that kids and families already enjoy. Those are their places. But to go to some of the other system-identified spaces, we need transportation, we need childcare. It's going to take longer for me to get there. So where are you having your spaces and places? Where are you providing those things that happen for you naturally? Where are you taking them? Yeah.
We actually do home visiting, so we won't visit the home if the parents are comfortable with us coming to the home, because sometimes it is scary to invite people into your house. I'll meet them in the library, I'll meet them at church if they want.
See?
I will go to Starbucks if they're okay with talking about their stuff in public. I'm okay. Like I tell them, I'll go where you want to go.
That's, you know what? I applaud you, because people don't just naturally do that. And what would it look like if we gave faith leaders what they needed to provide education and awareness for the pulpit? Can we have some seminars at the faith community? Can we talk about mental health in the faith community?
We actually partner with a church and provide counseling. They provide us counseling space, and we provide
Yes.
services there. We have to make it really clear though with because sometimes clients will come in and they'll be like, I don't know if I can meet you at a church. And we really do talk about, this is a place, a public place where we can meet, and we're not going to proselytize you or try to get you to believe this way. You don't have to come on Sundays to be able to have services here. And that's helped a lot overcome any kind of barriers or stigma that people might have going to receive services at a church.
And I think one of the things we have to do a better job of helping families and young people understand what confidentiality really is. Because for me, confidentiality is what goes on in the house stays in the house. That's confidentiality. Worst spanking I got was when I went outside and told everybody my brother hit me. And my mother spanked me. She said, what goes on in this house, little girl, you laughing because you understand. What goes on in this house stays in this house. What'd you say?
I grew up like that, what goes on in this house, stay in this house. I hate that term, but
Yes.
today because of it, and I don't use that in my
Yes.
house.
You know what else too? Times have changed and young people need to talk. But if you're like me and you come from a place where children are to be seen, not heard, somebody said, and what goes on in the house stays in the house, guess what? I didn't have a voice. I can't bake a cake. I'm gonna teach somebody to have a voice. And I did not have a voice. And when you have children that are witnesses to domestic violence, not even victims of, we know that puts them at risk for suicide, puts them at risk for depression, puts them at risk to see violence as okay. The list goes on and on. Why wouldn't I want to know that? So for me, I had to learn to not keep secrets. I had to learn to listen and teach that it's okay to talk. So when we're talking about parent engagement, see why it's important that we have this discussion? Because it's so much more than them coming to the table. So how do we do that? Some of us, we have parents and families coming to us, and I say they're knocking on our doors, and we answer the door in various ways. Some of us, like me, are so excited. You say, come on in, I got something to do, I want to help you, I'm so excited, you're here. And I can be overwhelmed. And then you have other people that come from an old school mentality. What you need, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, come on in here, get the help we have to offer. You see where we're going? Some people are shy, but they want to help and they're anxious, so it makes families uncomfortable. Okay, how can we help you? Come on. We have programs, yeah. Come on in. And then you have the person that thinks by osmosis is going to come in and they just think about it. And they just think they're going to feel yours and they're going to come on in. Some of y'all do that, right? I don't have to tell them everything, they're just going to feel me. But what I want to tell you is we've got to get on the same page. And it's a process. It's a process of saying, practice with each other. Practice with each other. Talk about parent engagement in a way that if this person comes in, watch your body language, y'all. Some of us, our body language will give us away. If that family lives with not having housing, when they come in, you got your face all drawn up, you got your arms crossed. All those things say, I really don't want you here. But if I go through the process and I can make it out of here as a parent, family, I'm not coming back. So body language and how you listen is very important. Make sense? So what are we going to do differently? What are we going to do that makes our spaces and places, that makes that engagement look different? Ask yourself that. What is that going to look like for you if you're thinking outside that matrix? What is it going to look like? It can't be the same. Some of you are sitting here and I see on your face, you say, I wish you would quit stepping on my toes. But we got to change. It's got to look different. Let's go next one. So I say to you, where do we start? I'm not saying, yes ma'am.
By simply asking them.
Asking them what? Give me more.
Where they're most comfortable, especially meeting. I used to tell my staff all the time, if they're more comfortable meeting right outside the home, whether it's a park because their younger kids can play, or I can meet the library because they can read or be a part of a reading program while you meet, ask them where's most comfortable for them.
And I say this, and I love that with all the chaos and the confusion and the challenges in our world today, that we still have enough people going in the field. I thank you. I thank all of my young people. Thank you for taking the time to get a degree, or thank you, my parents, for believing in your children and community and being there. Thank you, other professionals, for taking the time and staying in this field. We're not getting rich off of it, right? We're not getting rich. Because there is something to be said for walking in your passion and finding that purpose piece. Because if you're doing that, things will fall into place differently than they do for other people. I'm also asking you, again, to give yourself a little grace. Because it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process. I call it doing life in pieces. You ever see people that do puzzles? They make a big space. They empty the puzzle box out. And then they start putting a piece down at a time. They don't try to do the whole puzzle that day. It might even take them a month, but they do it in pieces. And they see it as a process. And that's what we have to do. And I tell you why I say that. My journey, don't judge me. I am changing in how I interact and work with young people. So I have a little boy in my neighborhood. He's about 6. And he's just learning to ride a bike. And he's riding his bike up and down everybody's driveway. He's in everyone's driveway. And I'm calling him a different name. Sam, come here. Stay out of everybody's driveway because you're going to scratch someone's car. And even if they're not here now, when they come home and you're not remembering they're up there, you're going to get hurt too. And if somebody's going to be down at your mom's house, it's going to be a hot mess. He said, and he's missing these 2 teeth. Okay. So I go in the house, I come back, guess what he's doing? Back in the driveway. I said, Sam, didn't I tell you to stay out of their driveway? Why would you do what I told you not to do? You're in everybody's driveway. Get out of there. And he said, can I talk to you a minute? I said, no. Boom. And I shut the garage in his face. Don't judge me. And after I shut it in his face, I went in the house. I was so angry. I told him what not to do. I told him why he should do it. And he did it anyway. I'm done with Sam. So a couple days later, I am thinking still about this. And I said, why did I do it like that? That's what was done to me, and I didn't learn anything. So I open my garage because I see him out there, and I said, Sam, can you come here a minute? He said, she shook his head no. I said, please, can you just come here? He came to me, and he said, I said, I owe you an apology. Because instead of fussing at you, I should have helped you to better understand why you should not go up and down the driveway. And I'm really sorry that I closed my garage in your face. That was all kinds of wrong. He still stood there. And I said, what I want to tell you, and I went over why he shouldn't do it again. I said, I need to teach better and allow you to learn. So I say they're teaching moments and learning opportunities. Okay? And I said, and I hope at some point you accept my apology. And remember, I'm this person, I am, but I'm growing. And I said, and I just want to shake your hand. I want to give you a hug. He said, I want the hug. And I told him hug. And it taught me that I'm still learning and growing. And I'm saying that to you all, be mindful and be okay with ongoing learning and growing. Don't be so hard on yourself when you don't get it right. Someone said today it's okay to make mistakes. I always say it's not the falling down, it's the getting back up. And some of us may take longer in the getting and falling down. We may stay down there for a while and need more time to figure out what happened. And some of us bounce right back up. But any way you do it, it's okay. The other thing that we don't do enough of in parent engagement is teaching families how to dance in a storm. So I'm gonna be in a storm, you're gonna go through one. But if I can dance in it, and if you're dancing in the storm, faith comes in there. So while I'm in the storm, faith happens, because I know it's gonna be okay, because on the other side, the sun's gonna come out. But if all parents know you want to engage me, if all parents think about is you need my help to get your numbers, because don't think they don't think like that, then what are we giving them to work with? While you have parents engaged, give them some tools to work with. Give them the same opportunities, if you didn't have it, that you wish you had at that time and stage in your life. And if I do that, and I'm asking the question, which I've done, I said, can you weather a storm? How do you weather a storm? And so you have young people saying, well, let me see, you can have boots. And I said, okay, so you got a snowstorm or rainstorm. Get your raincoat, okay. Somebody else says, you need gloves. Somebody else says, you need a hat. I love it. Somebody else is saying, I'm gonna put food in the basement. And I said, oh, you're preparing for a storm if you have to go downstairs and you have to be there for a while. Yeah, they're excited. And I said, how could you weather a storm in your life. And all the kids said, you can't weather a storm. One little girl raised her hand. She said, I call my grandma. I call my grandma. I said, you call your grandmother? She said, yes, that's how I weather a storm. But kids don't think like that. They don't see that they have power, they have opportunity. Again, we may have to hold the hope for them until they can hold it for themselves. And when that time comes, let them hold it. Don't hold on to parents and young people and keep your numbers up. Give them what they need so they can move on and the next group of parents can come in. You can't either have these expectations of young people if they don't understand the problem. And I say this because of this. So I have these young people I'm working with in school. And I go and work on this project, and it's in kind, I want to do it, and they're playing on their phones, and they're talking and doing everything they're not supposed to do. So, I'm having grown to where I am now. I said, I quit, I'm done with y'all. I'm leaving, take Cleveland, y'all can keep it. And they said, hold on, Miss Traceé, hold on. I said, no, I drive all the way up here, and you all won't listen, you're not participating, you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do. You're playing on your phones, and it's one girl, she was the leader of the group, all she did was talk and talk trash. And she said, well, maybe it's boring, maybe it's, I said, okay, so I'll leave, and I'm done. She said, no, please don't leave. I said, I'm asking you all how you feel about the murders, the crime in Cleveland. They said, it happened. You get away, it happens to you. It's what it is. It's like it is. How can it be like it is? What do you mean? She said, shootings going on here, you go around that way. That's what you think about it? I said, what if someone gets shot? They said it shouldn't have been in the way. I'm done. So finally I say to them, how many people know someone that has been killed by gunfire? Everybody raises their hand. I said, 2 people. Everybody's hand is up. 3 people, 4 people. I got to 5 people, these are children, before hands stop being raised. And I said, and you all don't feel any certain kind of way? They had no comment. It's the way it is. I said, okay, I have to do something about this in this moment, and it can't be traditional. I said, okay, what if I told you all I would take you to Tuesday? I'm sorry, Cedar Point up there, Cedar Point. They said, okay. I said, the trip is on me. Tell me how you feel. Oh, we're excited, Miss Traceé. We're going to ride a roller coaster, we're going to get cotton candy, we're going to have fun. You're going to take us, you're going to drive us up here too? Yeah. They had this whole plan, and their eyes lit up, and they're excited. So remember the girl that talked too much? I changed the subject drastically, and I said, hey, I'm going to take you upstairs, I'm throwing you out the window. She said, why? I said, because I can't. I'm going to throw you out the window. She said, if you throw me out that window, you're going with me. I said, I have no problem with that. Let's go. She said, Miss Traceé, I don't understand. I said, hold on, let's go. I'm going to throw you head first out the window. I said, how do you feel? She said, first, I don't understand why you want to hurt me. Next, I don't understand why me. And this is a lot. So I said, no, how do you feel? She said, I'm afraid, I'm hurt, I don't understand. Why would you do this? I said, why don't you feel that way about the murders and the crime of Cleveland? She said, I understood what young was. So when we're giving things to our young people, we're giving them in a way that we understand and we want them to have, and family members as well. Give them stories. Give them opportunities that are relevant to where they live, because some of them are not. When we work with young people and we're saying we want them to do better, they can't do better if they don't know better. So bridging the gap. How many people remember Mr. Rogers? Who are the people in your neighborhood? Oh, I told my age, about 4 or 5 people. Thank you, sweetheart, you just wanted me to feel good. But Mr. Rogers was a show about people in their neighborhoods, and what we must do is look at who's already connected to us. Is it the store owner? Is it the mailman? Is it the recreation center director? Who are those people that are already connected to family and youth? What are they doing? And how are you and they connected? If not, how can you become connected? If they're doing great work and they're already there, how can you become connected to them? Check them out first. I'm not asking you to do something that is inappropriate or wrong, because they are your trusted messengers. Does that make sense? Who are they? And what does this connection look like? How many of you already have it? Who are some of those people in your neighborhood? And how are they connected to you? For me, it's a church. And I know kids hang out there. There's a store kids hang out. I go down there and I take popsicles. And guess what? Those kids look out for me too. I get a knock on my door, Miss Tracy, okay? And I know you think I'm exaggerating, but I've worked on these relationships. You know why? Because I tried to move for 5 years, and I couldn't, and so I'm supposed to be there. It's like the Lord said, you're not going anywhere, I have work for you to do, you're going to stay right here. No matter what I did, got a realtor, everything, I couldn't get out. So make those connections. Why are you reinventing the wheel if those connections are already there? Does that make sense? Any questions, comments? You guys did good, just stayed away. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I have a problem every day seeing homeless women laying on the sidewalk with me. I have a problem with the police coming and not arresting people that are selling drugs out and then vaping after. I saw this not yesterday.
Oh my God.
I said it, this is a Houston. And I have a problem with who to connect with. I go to the community meetings and they're not talking about things like you're hitting on, you know. And I feel pissed because I'll be 70 years old and I still see this mess going on. And I talked to a few people in the area and they say, it is what it is. You shouldn't deal with that. And this is why I came here today. I want to hear what you have to say and I want to hear what other people have to say because something needs to be done. And I know I'm just voicing out there.
No.
And I'm looking at, we got these mayors that I'm getting into politics, and they come into your neighborhood and tell you different things. And I know a lot of people from Harvard.
Yes, ma'am.
I was a Harvard. Their houses are not finished. And they getting on TV and you just, I don't know who to connect with.
Okay, you all Houston folks, go first. Come on.
The neighbors, the children, you know, it's just, my little granddaughter was at a school that I taught straight up hood, and she had kids in her. I had to tell her, knock that boy down, punch him. And that's wrong. That's the wrong thing to say, because she's in HISD, another problem, you know. But what to do?
You know what?
Okay, for me.
I'm in Santa Maria Hostel, so here in Houston, Texas, so we offer free counseling. So reach out to your neighbors because 9 times out of 10, if you're standing on the street laying down and they're homeless, they have a problem.
Yes.
So you might have to be the lone voice that has them a card that says, let me connect you. So we are happy to give whoever, whatever, free counseling.
Okay.
For us, and we do go out into the community and do that. So we may already have a site in there. Just get with me afterwards and then I'll connect you to somebody that's not me.
Okay.
But that's one thing, is finding, you know, what kind of problems do you have and who you need to connect people with, because you might be the only person that has this time to connect people. So that's the first thing, recognizing your strength, and then saying, okay, I got this problem, I have that problem, who can I connect you with so that you can get up off the floor and stop, what you're doing. Okay, so that's a start.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm happy
Ms.
to do my project.
Okay, what else are we gonna help her with?
Which one are you from?
Well, part of you,
Yes, ma'am.
right there off of Lockwood and Crane, District, who's that? Boykins is,
From the white?
Is that District D?
and I know it goes to the neighborhood super league, right there on Lockwood.
What we, I used to work for the management district, and one of the things that I saw the community do, they were talking about the rail line, how they were going to the management district, and it was a perfect example for the epitome of the East End community coming together. And so every issue that, besides the light rail line that was coming through, every issue that was, if you will, bothersome to that community, they called meetings. At the time, Denise Parker was in charge, and they made a thing. We were over at one of the Ripley centers, Mr. Felix Frogler Center, but not his center, but it was named after him. And so it was a room, we had maybe 200 people there. And so they had, George Brennan was still, if you will, was in city council, but they had to listen. And so what they did was they said, listen, we hear what you're saying, Houston, we hear what you're saying, Metro, but at the end of the day, the city of Houston had to listen to what the constituents of that community said. So to you, I advise the same thing. Get persons that are like-minded like yourself, who have those issues, make them come to you. You don't have to come to them, get a community center, go in there and have that conversation with them. But more important, follow up and keep on pressuring them. That's what they did on the East End. And so
I'm familiar with East End and how it looks, because I'm from originally Fifth Ward, not away Cash Garden. My house is actually in Lakewood. And what I've noticed, when you get over that Navigation Canal area, Fifth Ward, Cash Garden, we have meetings, but to me, nobody's doing nothing. And Dutton, I know you know Harold Dutton. He came to a meeting and he gave some information, but I didn't like the way he presented it. You know, he was talking about his credentials, but he's from that area. And to me, some of those people should do more. The other person I know that tried to do things over there, and he's now dead. That's right.
Franco Lee, that's every precinct one there.
It's precinct one.
I mean, I'm not saying Rodney is the end all be all. He has all.
He's trying.
He's trying.
He's trying. It's gonna take time.
But Rodney has a good ear. He will listen. But my advice is to put that pressure on them. Have that conversation with them. Because there is power in numbers. The power of one, they're not going to hear you. They'll say they'll be next. But the East End Management District, when we went to have those meetings, we had several meetings. And so to that end, they convinced them to have it the way they wanted to have it done, and they were successful.
And East End is stronger than that area.
Is there anybody else?
Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you.
You said you're talking about. Is there anybody else that can provide some support?
Thank you all.
This is what I'm talking about, and it's not gonna stop here. The one thing that I'd love to see happen at conferences is please don't let this be a hit dog. Let this be a new beginning. I know many of you go to these meetings, you go home, was it 18? What happened, what did I attend? Don't let, it's what we put into it. Don't let this be one of those, because I believe in the Hawk Foundation, okay? I believe in the work that they are doing, and it's, I keep saying relevant, because it is relevant and it's what we need. If they put funding behind this issue, then I think we can do what we can do to support them and be a presence. Does that make sense? Be a presence in our community. Last thing, partner with providers and system folks, community. Because they can help you with collecting the data to show the outcomes. They have the knowledge base. You have the lived experience and you have pieces and your participants and your community members, they can't get without you. Does that make sense? And if you bring that together, that is so powerful. That is a voice, lived experience, knowledge base, that data, you can use that data to look at funding later. So when you go back to the next project and you show them this data and you have this partner, they can't help but to look at what you're doing. So I'm asking you not to see this as a one-hit wonder. I didn't travel all this way for nothing. I don't like to fly, but I can. Okay? I think we're going to be finished. I want to say this. You came here for a reason. Leave here empowered. Leave here with more than just some paper and some CEU. Families need you. Be innovative. Think beyond that matrix and give yourself a little grace. Provide yourself with some self-care. Take care of yourself first, like they say in the airplane. If the oxygen mask falls, put it on yourself first. Don't put it on everybody else, because who's going to help them if you fall out? So you put your mask on first. I'm asking you to put your mask on first. Take care of yourself. Remember, this is your gift if it is. And I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. If you don't want to be in it, get out. Okay? God bless you and thank you so much.